Welcome to a football show, NFL Combine Edition. Paul Kuharsky live from Indianapolis. I am Braden Gall, still in Nashville. Good to see everybody here on a Monday afternoon. Lots of stuff to get to. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. PK, how were the travels? How are you? Good to see you.
Travels were not bad at all. Saw the great Mike McCoy in the waiting area for my flight, and then some autograph hounds at baggage claim, wondering if they should approach him or not. And so that was fun. I have arrived. Have a lot to sort through tonight still to complete my preparations. It will be. I might sneak out to dinner. I might not. But a lot of preparations still. All this time, still not prepared. Still not completely prepared.
That's okay. That's okay. If you are watching on YouTube, please thumbs up. Please subscribe to the show. We have gained some followers. Subscribe to Paul Kuharsky's feed as well, his YouTube page. Please subscribe to both of those. We're going to have lots of coverage for you this week. Nick Suss is up there. James Foster's up there. PK's up there. So we got a lot of good people up there studying and talking to these folks. I know we're going to have some Titans availability, I believe Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're going to have some good stuff for you guys. You got player availability all week. And then, some nice dinners and some hobnobbing, as it were, in the evening. So lots of stuff to get to you guys this week on the show. So stay tuned. PaulKuharsky.com is the website. You can check out his writing there. And if you are listening on Twitter or watching on Twitter, go to my feed at Braden Gall. Twitter's having a big problem right now with the back-end software that live streams for everybody for about a week and a half now. So if you can go to my account, you can find the feed, share it, or watch it there. Facebook as well. So do appreciate you guys supporting us in all the ways that you do. It's a fun time to be a Titans fan, as we have. One of the things the main topic today on the show is I want to set the scene sort of going into this week, PK, of there are things the Titans have to sort of know unequivocally coming out of this week, or at least feel comfortable with a really, really good guess. And I want to know sort of what those questions are, top down. There's about 5 or 6 of them that I think we need to try to find answers for this week. We'll go through all of those questions and what they mean for the team moving forward as well. We've got some news around some free agents. And obviously this sign in Midtown over at Vanderbilt that's got the whole entire internet buzzing today because there's no news from the Combine yet. So, well,
it's the first thing they've done right on this, probably, creating a little buzz and stir of their own doing. So good job by them on that, I think.
I agree with you on that. Richard says, wear a wig in the hotel lobby and get some good scoops. I don't think you need the wig with this particular organization,
No. You could talk to people off the record at the Combine, which is kind of the key. Titans people and other people.
Yeah, that is correct. Trade idea, if they take it, since I've heard buzz around this name. Dexter Lawrence for Sweat and a future pick. Look, this is some wish casting here with the Tavondre Sweat thing. Should they consider trading for Dexter Lawrence? I mean, maybe, but you'd have to work some. I mean, that means Rueben Bain is off the table for the Titans, as it were. So that's one of those where we need to. We'll get there.
I think generally they're not trading picks for players. They're not looking for older players. Maybe next year if they feel like they're rounding out a roster. But I think really they want 3 years of young players, and they're going to stay away from trades.
Would Max Crosby be the only one that they would consider?
I don't know. I mean, if Trey Hendrickson hits free agency, we've talked about the differences between Trey Hendrickson and Max Crosby, but the biggest difference is that there's no compensation for Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
And they have money. So go spend money on the best free agents you can get. We're going to get into that pool is already starting to lose people and will continue to lose people. But I don't disagree with the idea that they're not going to be trade shoppers. They want good young talent. Now they have to pick it well.
That's kind of the key. And the big job this week in Indianapolis, there's no question. Do you believe that the Ridley decision has been made, asks Joe? I would assume
the Ridley decision was made pretty much when he went on IR.
So you're not moving on there's a chance he comes back.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm thinking Snead. No, I think there's a chance he comes back, and I don't know if that decision has been made yet or not.
Can I this is sort of a part of a combine preview to some degree. And one of the major questions that we need answered is about the 3 receivers at the top of the board. In theory, because of the timing works out this way, you could spend the entire week getting to know this wide receiver class, interviewing them, talking to them, studying them even more in depth, even though you got all your scouting hay sort of in the barn. And once you talk to them, could that potentially swing you into deciding, look, if we don't think these 3 guys are top 4 picks, top 10 picks, maybe we should keep Calvin Ridley. Is that a logical line of thinking potentially?
Yeah, potentially, I think. One of the things I want to work on this week is kind of like, how does the league view route craft and separation and speed right now at receiver? And if you had to pick one, what do you take? Because I look at Tate and I see a very good receiver, but again, at 4, I want more speed than he has. Not that he can't be an excellent receiver in the league. And a lot of people will come back and list all the 4 or 5 guys who are super receivers, and that's great.
Right.
But again, we get into this conversation about virtually all the candidates we look at their positions of need at 4 are not quite there on some trait that you want in that position. So then start to weigh, well, which one can you live without the most?
Yeah.
And so for me, a conversation about those traits in receiver maybe starts to answer that question for me.
And I find that interesting because there are certain positions where specific athletic traits are sort of not necessarily non-negotiable, but you need a certain level of athletic ability for offensive tackle, for edge rusher, for wide receiver, and for corner. Like there's varying degrees of it may not be just your 40 time, but if you go listen to the show that I did with James Foster 2 weeks ago on the Hot Read podcast, we talked extensively about what drill is most important, what skill, what measurable is most important for each position. And what are the ones that sort of like it's not negotiable? Like you need a certain level of quality in your athletic ability, and receiver tends to be one of them. It's not an end all be all because you can have the DeAndre Hopkins type players that aren't necessarily burners, but they know how to manipulate coverages. Great hands, huge catch radius. Is that Carnell Tate potentially? Makai Lemon is a guy that's going to be viewed maybe through the lens of like quote unquote less athletic. It'll be interesting to see what he runs this week. Although his tape 2 years ago shows him with a little bit more athletic ability and explosiveness, but he's just outside of press coverage. I have no concerns about Makai Lemon, for example. Jordyn Tyson might be the guy that has best of all of this stuff, but we don't know if he's healthy or not. Those are the things that the Titans have to answer this week while they're up there.
Right, a lot of option routes in this offense. That's somewhere where I don't feel great. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm overreading. That's somewhere I don't feel great about Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's decision-making, Calvin Ridley's feel for a cornerback in some big moments. He's made some decisions about where he feels like a cornerback is going or coming from that have let them down in some big moments. Now,
is the one where he goes out of bounds on the 3rd down the one that sticks in your brain as just like that's unacceptable awareness?
Yes.
But is that related to running a route or just that's post-catch, though, to some degree, right?
Well, that's during catch. Sense of where people are during catch.
Yeah.
All right. But if he's got to consistently be on the same page with the quarterback about if this, then that.
Yeah.
Does that put more on him than I want to see on him? I don't know if that's fair. I get a feeling in my gut that that's not the best case scenario for him.
I see what you're saying there. I still think it's my thought is they had a good feeling about Ridley at the end of the season, and that they need to have a pretty good feeling about this draft class at the end of this week, and then they pair those two things together and say, look, based on like and we're going to get to this as well. For Kyle Pitts is going to get tagged by the Falcons. It looks like Alex Pierce is not going to hit free agency. Those are the reports coming out of Indianapolis. So some of these names not being available, although Michael Pittman might be available if he's a cap casualty. So it also depends on what the market looks like, who's available for the Titans when it comes to that. I think Ridley being on the team is of significant value to Cam Ward in the offense. It's the next year that's concerning. That concerns me. to be honest. Let's see. Richard says, do you think that free agency is more about picking up a couple of mid-range starters and depth, or shopping for high-end players? Yeah, but it's
enough money for both.
It's Tyler Lindenbaum at offensive line. Otherwise, there's no other high-end players. It's George Pickens, and I don't want him in a Titans uniform or a Packers uniform, frankly. That's the only high-end piece there. Is Breece Hall a high-end piece? I don't think so. I think he's a good quality starter. So I don't know what high-end piece is.
Breece Hall a high-end piece if you're subbing him out for a Pollard. I mean, I would call it an upgrade.
Yeah, but Barkley was a free agent, right? Like, I'm thinking, when I think high-end, big ticket, I think Pro Bowl or above, all pro caliber player.
I mean, if Hendrickson hits the market, will they be in it? Hendrickson, I could see them being in it for Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Who are the other biggest tickets in this free agency pool? That's fair.
Tyler Lindenbaum is probably one of the biggest that the Titans could use.
There's a lot of talk about him going to the Raiders. I keep saying Oakland. Are they going to be in it for Mike Evans? I don't think so. Awfully old.
I think the answer is yes.
I mean, the fourth name at Spotrac is Juwan Jennings. That's not big ticket. It's big money. I think they could be in it for Juwan Jennings if they like him. Alec Pierce isn't going to wind up there. So, the name's Owe. Owe is a big get to me, and I could see them chasing him hard from the Chargers, and I think they should chase him hard. He's not a giant name. Yeah. I think he's a good guy to add to your team.
The Coach B says, is Reek Woolen a possibility? I think every corner is a possibility. He might I don't know what his cost is going to be, though, because he didn't have as good a year as he did maybe 2 years ago. Malik Willis is getting a lot of love today, says LCT.
Is a bit of a problem child. And I think that in the culture talk and in getting away from problem children, I'd look. Jamal Dean is still a bit south of 30.
You're gonna have to overpay for Dean, I think, though, and I don't love that.
Meek Robinson is south of 30. We've heard, Josh Joby, Alante Taylor. I
like Taylor.
Big ticket for them. Is he a big ticket league wise? I don't know.
Jordan says, I'd rather have Ridley and Sam Pittman at wide receiver than Michael Pittman. That's y'all's Titans fans' hatred for Michael Pittman is hilarious to me. I think he's a pretty good player. Let's see here. If you're not
possession guy,
100%. If you're not in love with anyone at 4, do you trade back for lesser value? Do you hold firm to the value of the pick? Says Ed Henry. That's the debate with every draft class that doesn't feel as elite at the top. That is going to be something we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show. So I'm going to put a pin in that one, because there is a collection of players that feel like that are clearly, unequivocally high floors, 10-year starters in the NFL, but they're all at sub-premium positions, even if almost all of them could help the Titans. And so that's sort of the debate. Do you take the best linebacker, safety, running back, etc., and know that you're getting a star at that position for 10 years, or do you take a little bit more of a risk and go for a position of need? It's all about how you grade the players. Those are questions we need answered this week, so we'll get to that. Ed Henry also says, PK, just crash the back room at St. Elmo's and bring us the scoop. There you go. Let's see here. All right, so quickly, Sinkers Beverages. Let me tell everybody about Sinkers Beverages, our great and amazing local sponsor here in East Nashville. They are a 5-time liquor store of the year, and they have a beer fridge that continues to win awards because they provide a vast array of amazing, spectacular local brews like East Nashville Beer Works, Yazoo Brewing Company, as well as Tennessee Brew Works. Those are 3 of my favorites, so go check those out. Also, because you sign up for the In Crowd, which I recommend to all of you doing, sign up for the In Crowd. And when you do that, you'll get a couple of emails a year with really good opportunities to purchase cool stuff. Sometimes it's wine. Sometimes it's new releases of tequila and deep dives. Sometimes it's a barrel pick of tequila. And sometimes, my personal favorite, it's things like a barrel selection of Weller. So this is their most recent Antique 107. You can see it right there. That's one of the best drinkers you're ever going to have. And they sent me an email and they said, hey, look, you got your Weller Antique 107 barrel pick for you behind the register. Why don't you come on by and pick it up at your discretion? I said, okay. A couple weeks go by, I go get it because I have time. Boom, there we go. Got myself a new bottle of delicious bourbon that you cannot get anywhere else. This is the only bottle of 107 you can get like this. And Sinkers is great. I've seen them do the process. They send a whole team up there. You sample like 6 barrels, and you're trying to get one that you know your bourbon drinkers are going to like. It's a really cool process. So There you go. I'd rather develop. Go to Sinkers, everybody. I'd rather develop Alec at X and spend the Pittman money elsewhere. That's fine. Michael Pittman's better than Alec Iomanner, but I get the strategy there. Younger development. I get all that. Cheaper, etc. Here we go.
Well, you're going to overlap with one of these guys. If you're getting 2 wide receivers, which you need to do, and I would argue 1 veteran and 1 draft pick, you're going to overlap with Iomanner or DK.
Yeah.
Now you want a guy that plays everywhere, ideally, or at least both outside spots. And so I don't think you tiptoe around Iomanner in any way, shape, or form. Maybe you give DK some benefit of the doubt, but you need depth. I mean,
that's what makes Jordyn Tyson so interesting is that he can do all of it, and he's not really pigeonholed into a specific position. Makai Lemon could struggle with press coverage, so maybe you don't want him on the outside. Carnell Tate is a little bit more of that Iomanner outside body. So they're even within those 3 at the top of the draft, you could decide on a different type of skill set that you like. So, all right, quickly here before we get into these questions, I do want to ask you about this. Like this sign that's over on West End, it looks like there's some billboards other places. It just has a date on it. It's got the light blue-ish color uniform. There's 3 dark blue stars on it, and it just says 3/12/26. It's just they're just sort of advertising a date, which is cryptic and very good marketing, by the way. It's a very smart strategy. I agree with you on that. Do you think this is tied to what we've been talking about? It would make sense that it is building on itself from a marketing standpoint week on week on week, but it doesn't necessarily mean, like we talked about last week, it doesn't necessarily mean that that the team is getting a new primary logo and new uniforms.
Well, it's the second day of free agency also, which is a little bit strange timing wise. It could be introducing a guy that day.
Trey Hendrickson. Oh, by the way, move over, Trey. We've got new 3rd uniforms.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of pushback when I said it could be the rivalry uniform because those weren't unveiled, and that's very much a Nike production until August last year. So, I mean, it certainly would seem like, and apparently Buck Rising said it on the air, but I was sorry, Andrew, but you can't go halfway. Like if you're saying it on air and you're not tweeting that you're saying it on air, are you saying it? Like your Twitter.
You're saying if it doesn't happen on Twitter, it's not real life. Is that what you're saying? I feel like that's the opposite.
Well, I'm saying, and Buck knows this as well as anybody, like you're a multi-platform person. If you're only saying it on one of your platforms, something's up about how staunchly you believe what you're saying, I think. If I've got, and I investigated a little bit today and got nothing back. If I have that it's the release, then I'm tweeting it, writing about it, probably doing a video about it. Because I've got something. Now, these young guys don't always think that way. I don't know. But if I had it, I'm not letting somebody else tweet about me talking about it on the radio. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's halfwayism to me there.
So look, there's been too much smoke around this for too long for there not to be some fire. I think the question is, we just don't know how big it is and what exactly it is. That's all. And I think I stand by our show last week. It was not a knock on anybody doing any other reporting anywhere else. It's just I think there's more vagueness and sort of uncertainty around this than people realize. I think when a third-party company publishes a logo that's like a clip art mock-up on accident in a tranche of other photos, there's a good chance it's not real. Like they might be doing something, but there's a good chance it's not going to look like that, which is all I was trying to say, and that it's not even officially, even through all the other reporting, there's not been a single report from anybody saying that the Titans have a new primary logo and new uniforms. That has not been reported anywhere from my, unless I'm correct, mistaken on that. I don't think so. Otherwise, good job, Titans. Like if that's you and you're the ones doing that, that's good work, man. That's mysterious. It's building interest in it. It's smart stuff. Good job.
I agree.
And I will be out of the country on March 12th. Okay. Let's
travel.
Yeah, no, man. It's that time. It's these are my
time in your lives.
Yeah, it's that time. I got young kids that are old enough to travel. and we have a forced family vacation every March and every October. So, okay.
There is a period of time. I don't know if you've heard of this period of time called summer.
Yeah. And then what?
March and October are neither of them fall in summer.
You must have forgotten. You've been so far removed from like having to watch your kid the whole time that they're not in school. Like when's the last time you had to like watch your son?
It's been a while. He's 16.
That's what I'm saying. Like he just shows up at school from school every day, no matter like he's got his own car. He's driving around
a lot too.
All right. So if you were sitting in a room and Borgonzi and the Brain Trust, all the former general managers, and they're just sitting there and they're going like, all right, guys, like we need to find answers this week because we're going to get to see these players. We're going to talk to these players. We're going to get to know their hearts and their minds. How much do they love ball, et cetera, et cetera. The tape study's been done. That's been done for months. It's been done at the Hayes in the Barn there. They still need to come up with some answers. Is there one thing that matters most to you this week, that the question that they need answered the most this week in terms of the fourth pick and then how that leads them into decision-making and strategy the rest of the draft and into free agency as well? Like, what is the thing that you want to know the most if you're the Titans this week?
Who's a phony? I don't know. That's the first thing that jumps to my mind. I mean, I really think virtually every question that they've got to really answer is findable at home on the film or maybe at a pro day workout / a individual workout with them. I mean, we've talked about these questions with Bain and Bailey and Reese. I don't know that they're going to answer those questions here. Is Bain here? I mean, Bain may not even be here or be testing here. And so
there was a fake account that posted that, I think yesterday or today.
I didn't see the fake account. I just heard the spillover from the fake account.
Yeah.
I mean, they know his arms are short. They're going to find out just how short. If any of them have a undetailed medical issue, they'll get more detail on that. But I don't know, I mean, I think Tate's 40 speed is interesting, but again, they see how fast he is on film, which is more important. It's football speed in games for Ohio State against the best people that that covered him. Against the best defenses they played, which maybe weren't that many, but in the full scope of his career. So I don't know how many answers you find that way. And then you've got these rehearsed meetings that maybe just get you icebreakers so that when you see them the next time, you've broken through some of that rehearsed performative stuff. So I don't know if they go home from here feeling like, well, we really broke through and learned something about the top 4 candidates for number 4.
Let me lay mine out and I'll see kind of what you can kind of pick it up where you want to go with it. Right. And so I think there's a lot of small questions that are specific. Like, what position do you think Arvell Reese should play, Tennessee Titans? Like, that's a very specific question. Probably an edge rusher, but who knows? That's a question they have to have an answer for themselves. I hope they would already have that answer, but because you didn't see him play that position much, that's something that you can talk with him about here. What were the conversations like with your coaching staff? What were the things you've been working on? Was it a sacrifice you needed to make for the good of the team, et cetera, et cetera? I think they need to have a priority between Rueben Bain and David Bailey. I assume they have one based on the tape, and both of those players were outstanding in the playoff, and that is tape. But a couple of games of tape should not necessarily change your entire evaluation of a player, but it is the most important stuff. I think they have to know who they like better between David Bailey and Rueben Bain coming out of this week. I think they have to know which one they like better. I think Bailey fits their needs more. I think Bain might be have the higher floor. I don't love either of them at 4 in any other draft, unfortunately, but this is the draft we're in. So I think that one ties in directly to my next question, which is you got to prioritize and you have to have the receivers, the 3 receivers prioritized, Carnell Tate, Jordyn Tyson, and Makai Lemon. But the biggest question with those 5 players is about Jordyn Tyson's health. And if you're going to get a lot of that information, ideally this week, if you think that Jordyn Tyson is fully healthy and you're not concerned about the hamstring and about some of the other things that have happened from an injury standpoint, from a medical standpoint, that you could make the case that Jordyn Tyson is the best player of the 5 pretty clearly, if you can answer his medical questions. So the question that, if you look at ranking the 3 receivers and you look at ranking the 2 edge rushers, you look at what position does Reese play, how healthy is Jordyn Tyson, if you look at those guys, the question you need to ask and answer, I think the most coming out of this week is there someone in that group that is so much better than the rest of them that you have to take them? That it doesn't, like, Jordyn Tyson is clearly the best player of those 5, so much so that you cannot pass on him at 4, even if it's a little early, relatively speaking. So I think it's, is Tyson fully healthy? What position is Reese? And in the context of a edge versus receiver conversation, is there one of those guys that is so much better than the rest that you cannot pass, or are they all about the same? And if they're all about the same, PK, then I think you have to start thinking about the rest of the draft and about who's available at 35, who's available at 66, which position group do we like better throughout the course of the draft. And otherwise, like, you could be taking a major risk at 4 that you don't need to take.
Yeah, I think that's all good and thorough. I think, when you were wrapping there, I thought you were going to say you have to think about who best serves Cam Ward.
Also that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know, you looked a lot historically at teams that had 1 and 1 back to back, but I think, that told us that the trend is, if you have 2 high picks back to back, which lots of teams have had, you generally are looking at a quarterback and at a big defensive presence up front.
Yeah.
If they go away from that, you're talking more like a Burrow Chase situation. Now, they had a previous relationship, obviously, which changed the chemistry of it to a degree. But I could see, if Tyson is close there, you're saying, well, we need to maximize the weaponry for our quarterback who we're investing everything in here. My thing isn't what is his health now. My thing is he injury prone kind of guy? Does he have a propensity for being hurt? And Brinker, in his that's one of his big things, is to analytically avoid injury. And the biggest analytic avoidance of injury is not to take guys who are more likely to get hurt. And how do you identify guys who are more likely to get hurt? Is guys who have been hurt, And so if you put those guys on a board, the 6 that we're talking about, I think you would agree, as much as you like him, Lemon is probably the 6th of those 6 in terms of draft value. He's not going at 4.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Even though out of the six, he might be my favorite.
Right. But if you put those 6 down and say who's got the biggest injury question, who is it?
It's Jordyn Tyson. Yeah.
So that's a big minus to me.
Yeah.
In that regard.
This
guy has to play for you.
Yeah.
You have to maximize the chances that this guy plays for you as a rookie and through the 4 years of his rookie contract. And it 100%. Seems to me Tyson is the least likely of the 6 or of the 5 to do that.
Yeah, I think Reese actually might be 6, if you're asking that way, right? Because I think you're right. If you say draft value, then I think Lemon is the 6th one. If you're saying which one is least likely to play all 4 years /5, I agree that Tyson and I think Reese, because you don't even know what position he is right now. You have no tape. If you're going to draft him and play him at edge, you don't even know. He has nothing on tape to show you that he could do that. Now, he might be elite. He might be spectacular, but he's never even done the thing you're drafting him to do, really. So that's a concern to some degree. And I think Bustin asked a really good question here, which I'll frame it a little differently, because I want to go back to something Robert Saleh said at his press conference, where Bustin says, of the wide receivers, oh, wait, hang on. Sorry, wrong question. Bustin says, am I crazy for thinking a strong defense helps Cam Ward more than a wide receiver whose ceiling would be wide receiver 2? Now, two quick points. Number one, if you think Lemon, Tate, or Tyson, their ceiling is wide receiver 2, then none of them are on your board at 4. You are not drafting a receiver 2 at number 4 in the draft. Unacceptable if that's the case. But I do think the question is valid. And if I go back and I think of what Robert Saleh said at the podium, where he said, I want to make sure we're going to surround. We don't want Cam Ward to have to be Superman for 60 plays a game. We want to surround him with the team so that he doesn't have to be that player or feel the need to be that type of player. We want him to grow into that.
Very directly to that.
And so the question is, and I think this is a really good question, and I think I think the answer is like, yes. Is it a great receiver or is it a great defense? I think the answer is yes. I think both of them will help Cam Ward not have to be great. If you have a great defense that keeps you in games and you're playing like 21-17 games all season, great defense is going to give Cam Ward a chance to win games. And same with the receiver.
Yeah, I abide by that theory, absolutely. But if you're being precise in what you're talking about, helping Cam Ward means when Cam Ward is on the field, having help. Not Cam Ward having better field position, not Cam Ward being on the field last, not Cam Ward getting an occasional defensive touchdown, all of that stuff. Not Cam Ward having to score, 3 or 4 points fewer in order to win and all of that stuff. All of which obviously helps Cam Ward. But when he's on the field, can they move the ball? Can they find explosive plays? Can they convert third downs? Can they be in 2nd and 4 instead of 2nd and 8? Can they be in 3rd and 2? All of these things. And the defense isn't going to help them with those particulars.
Well, I'll disagree a little bit because I think the pressure you remove from a quarterback who feels the need to score every time out, that changes the way you make decisions as a quarterback. That you might force the ball into coverage you may not need to do. Maybe you're going for it on 3rd and 8 when really you should only be going for it on 3rd and 3. Like I just think that there's if you know that the defense has your back. And again, I think we just saw an elite defense carry Sam Darnold to a Super Bowl win, and I'm not suggesting that Sam Darnold is the perfect example here.
But Sam Darnold won the NFC Championship game.
Right?
Also.
Yeah, he did. The idea is that a player can be more, not conservative is not the right word, but when you don't have the pressure, like Joe Burrow clearly feels the pressure every time out to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like it's clear that he feels the need to do that all the time. And if you remove some of that pressure, you can allow a quarterback to play the way he's designed to play within the system a little bit more. So I'm not disagreeing with you. The question is sort of like
we're in the same place.
Yeah, and honestly, the question is sort of like
primo guy to deal with, and he needs better structure of the whole dynamic. Yeah. They got much better at special teams last year. That obviously helped it from being a lot worse than it was. Now they need guys who can defend the pass and rush the passer far better. So that's why they need more than one high pick here, ideally. That's why you hope not too many guys get tagged or re-signed, ideally, even though it's not a great pool. So, that's why there's a lot of work to be done. It's not a one-player answer by any means.
And there's also, that's a philosophical, strategic answer that we're debating right now. There's also like, what does Robert Saleh actually mean when he says that? Does he, to your point, does he mean like, no, he needs a running partner on offense, right? Like that's what he could be saying in that situation. So Ryan said,
doesn't have to come in the top 4 either.
That's right. I expect my guru defensive coach to elevate my defense, says Ryan. So here's ultimately the like.
That's fine, but he can't elevate Justin Harrell to
former Tennessee defensive,
the very best of Justin Harrell. He's not going to turn him into Trey Hendrickson.
Former defensive University of Tennessee defensive tackle Justin Harrell. I like that.
Sorry, Jay.
It's bad that I know a player exactly who you're talking about, like the way you do the one with the Titans defensive back. Anyway, I think what's interesting here is, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this. The thing that I keep thinking about is that if they're all about the same, right there, and I don't mean like their skills are the same or they do the same things, but I'm saying they're all graded as a a B plus prospect, a 6.9, whatever, right? They're all about the same. I think at that point, if you've evaluated all these guys at the end of the week and you're like, hey, here's what David Bailey does for us and here's what Rueben Bain does for us, but they're kind of graded similarly. One of them is clearly not better than the other. Bailey is a little bit more of a bendy edge who can get some pressure off the edge. Bain is a little bit more versatile. And if you look at the two types of edge players that Gus Bradley says he wants, they're actually one of each of them. And so if they're basically about, but if they're graded the same, Arvell Reese probably has the most upside, but if he's graded as 6.9 and Tate is graded as a 6.9 and Jordyn Tyson's a 6.9 and Makai Lemon's a 6.8, like at that point, you're drafting basically the same player no matter what decision you go with. There's no clear-cut best guy in that group. If that's what you feel, then why would you not incorporate the depth of the class in the decision at 35 and at 66 or in between there as the reason to take a particular position? Like, if you really love all the receivers in that section of the draft, shouldn't that then dictate taking the chance on Bailey or Bain? Again, assuming that they're all graded about the same, wouldn't what you can get later then dictate what you should do it for?
I'll take it further. I think you got to look at next year.
That's harder to do.
Conceivably look at next year. Though, what's the first round got next year?
Well, the receivers and the edges are both amazing next year in the top 10 on paper right now.
All right. Well,
you got Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman.
Look at that. All right. So I'd say, what are we going to come out with better in the second round here? Is KC Concepcion lasting to 35? And
Chris Bell.
And
Omar Cooper.
Are those guys? What's the gap between those guys and the gap between the edges? And then, next year, how many guys look like they're going to be premier receivers and edges for us next year?
Yeah, I don't disagree. Joe says you can get good weapons at 35, though, in the draft. So draft a first-round wide receiver and draft a first-round wide receiver next year. And this is where the Ridley thing comes into play. If you've decided to keep Ridley, that need at receiver is diminished compared to the edge and the corner.
Well, I think you're not deciding to keep Ridley and then determining this. You're determining this.
Yeah.
And deciding to keep Ridley as a result of what you determine.
Yeah.
Like, you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And maybe he gives you some leeway here that if you do another year of Calvin Ridley, it gives you more rationale to go with one of those defensive guys. Here's my thing, though. I mean, if you like those three defensive guys somewhat the same, and you've got your choice of them at 4, I'd sure rather let somebody else do the deciding and get something else.
Honestly, that's why I'm like, trade back to 8 and take Lemon. Like, that's what I've been at for trade back to 9, trade back to 10, whatever it might be, and take the guy with the highest floor. That's a guaranteed starting receiver for you for the next 7 to 10 years.
Back to 8 and take the one of these guys that's
left. Yeah. So,
if you like them all the same.
I agree.
And we'll get a better sense of that this week, mostly from talking off the record to other defensive coaches around the league, I think.
Sinkers Beverages, everybody. Make sure you go support good local business in 2026. That's paulkarski.com. That's 440 Media, but that's Sinkers Beverages as well, and all of their great products. Again, you can search Uber Eats and have the booze delivered directly to your house, so you don't have to go anywhere. They'll bring it right to you. And, of course, they've got those great local craft beers from Nashville, from Middle Tennessee. Go support good local small business in your community if you can, and you got a few extra bucks. It would mean a lot to them, of course. Keep those businesses flourishing. Sinkers Beverages, paulkarski.com, and then all the great local breweries. Yazoo Brewing Company up in Madison. You can sit on the river. Obviously, the weather tonight, not so much, but you can sit on the river and you can enjoy an OG Pale Ale, Dos Perros, Gerst, all that great stuff. You got the best food, great pregame spot for downtown at any tap room in the city at Tennessee Brew Works. They have fantastic food, and it's an easy place to get to if you're going to a show at the Ryman or a Preds game or just out downtown. Swing by Tennessee Brew Works beforehand, and, of course, East Nashville Beer Works out there in Mount Juliet. They got a putting green and a dog park and a playground and an LED screen, an adult only section upstairs where you can smoke a cigar if you want, and the OG location, East Nashville Beer Works in East Nashville. So all three of those great places to go support this year in 2026. All right, here's the one I want to ask you about the NFL. This is a good segue because two of you have asked very good questions in here that I want to use to kind of spin up some combo here. And that is, Ed says, is the buzz? Yeah, go ahead. What?
Just two of them have asked good questions.
Yeah, all the other questions are atrocious. Is the buzz that Mendoza might not go number one very real? There's been some talk about maybe the Raiders trading and or not taking Mendoza. I think that's interesting. I think if you really read between the lines, and I reached out to a few scouts and I said, is there some truth to any of this? And they're like, almost everybody responded to me, they would be shocked if Mendoza did not go one to the Raiders. But what do you make of that story and why it's happening? This is pretty normal draft subterfuge here.
I would think so. Testing the interest level in Mendoza around the league and the value of the pick, and seeing if people buy that Kubiak would stick with Geno, I guess, for a while longer. But generally, if you're this bad, new regime, and you have a chance at the top quarterback coming out, who's pretty well regarded widely, you take him.
He's 6'5". He's a smart kid. He's not going to get in any trouble. He's athletic. He's got a big arm. He's going to have to work on his progressions because the Indiana offense didn't ask him to do much complicated reading of a defense. But I think he's sort of got the work ethic to do it. It doesn't make much sense for them not to take him at number one. It's not, and honestly, I think he's graded probably higher than Cam Ward was coming out. I think
I get that sense, but we'll hear more about that. In the next month.
So here's the other one here that says the Coach B asks, unpopular view, but I think if Proctor, which is Caden Proctor, Alabama offensive tackle, somehow drops to the second round, the Tennessee Titans got to go get him. And one of the things James Foster said on Hot Read last week is that the offensive linemen, there could be a couple of offensive linemen that are absolutely freakazoid athletes that are going to test off the charts this combine. And drafting a high-end offensive lineman to help your second-year quarterback, you could do that every single year in the top 50, and it probably would be an okay strategy. How important is the offensive line to this current front office roster coaching staff? They have to figure that out because there are some good names, and a lot of them should be available around pick 35. They're going to have, I think, a tough decision to make. They need to know at the end of this week how important is offensive line and how good are some of these players that are there in Indianapolis?
Look, it'd be fantastic if you could do what Rustin Webster did a year before Michael Roos was done and get your Taylor Lewan. Though, they don't have the luxury of doing that. And it was a luxury when they did it, and it turned out to be very smart. I just don't think you can afford to do it. I've argued this with Rexroad for a couple weeks now. But, look, Dan Moore's not good, but it does exist. There are three cornerbacks on this roster who don't exist.
It's very philosophical of you.
Yeah, and you have to take somebody who exists over you have to take somebody to fill a blank hole on your roster, I think.
Headline: Reporter advises team to take human who is real.
Yeah. If you take a good left tackle, either he's bumping Dan Moore or he's sitting. And in either of those circumstances, you have a starting level football player not playing. And for this team to have a starting level football player either making $22 million or of a second round caliber, not playing when you are absent three starting corners, where you don't have good wide receivers, where you probably need a change at running back, where you don't have a second inside linebacker, where you need two edges. The list goes on and on.
That's all?
And list goes on and on and on. And so it just seems to me an incredible luxury. And so I'd like to get that tackle. But I think the big addition is Carmen Brasillo, who's got to get good play out of Dan Moore for a year. And I think you're drafting an offensive lineman again next year. And you've got to deal. They're in a position where They have to deal with current depth chart problems for a time now before they could deal with future depth chart problems. This team has not been in position to draft, say, well, this guy's contract's going to be up and we need to draft his replacement a year ahead of that, like good football teams do. This team hasn't been in that position for 4 or 5 years.
Logan Jones at 101 pushing the propaganda. I'm with you on that one, dude. I think he is your long-term answer at center and short-term answer at guard if you need it to be that way, depending on how you evaluate Cushenberry. Cushenberry is still pretty young, by the way. I don't think people realize that he's still a relatively young player. Don't ask PK about drafting O-line. You'll send him straight to the minibar. Look,
it's not that I'm against it. I could understand doing it. I just think every time we watch the second corner get beat, I'll look to the bench and say, look at Dan Moore over there, or look at the number 2 draft pick over there. That could have been a corner who stopped that completion.
I think the question, and I think this is what the Coach B is getting at, which is that if you, and this is, it almost doesn't matter what name you think it is. If you think that you have a long time answer at left tackle and you can get them at 35 because they fell in the draft, number one, you should have them graded at like 8-15, right? You should have them graded way higher in the draft. But if that person falls, and I don't know if, is Blake Miller, that guy out of Clemson, is the tackle out of Minnesota that no one can pronounce his name, is he going to be that good? Caden Proctor is probably the most talented. Monroe Freeling out of Georgia is going to be a freakazoid at the combine. He might be more of a top 15 or 20 pick. But to that point, if you think Monroe Freeling is a 10-year left tackle, like a Marius Mims looks to be at Georgia, or when he was drafted in that really deep tackle class when the Titans took Latham, like if you think that's how good that guy can be, you probably have him graded in the top 20. And if that player then falls to you at 35, you will be taking that player over a receiver that you have graded at 32, because that's how boards work.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's falling 15, 20 spots to you, I mean, I guess I should have put that caveat on this conversation from the start. If anybody's falling 15, 20 spots to you, you should be taking him or trading that spot to somebody else who clearly thinks that somebody's fallen 15 or 20 spots to them. For sure. Yeah. And if they come out and say, look, now I'd like that kind of transparency. They don't like to say it because it comes somehow into bonus negotiations or guarantees or the like. But
that's silly, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. But I mean, I could totally see that, and I wouldn't be upset with that.
And that brings me to one of the last questions, and that is, and this sort of loops us right back to the start, which is I think they need to be pretty focused, and they're not. They obviously, teams are focused on 400 players and 250 players and every round of the draft, and they're trying to get to know as much as they can. But in theory, I think you have to prioritize answering the questions that affect your number 4 pick the most, which makes sense. And I think we've kind of gone over those. I think the last question that is tied to that pick is, are these guys that are at non-premium positions, every position the Titans need, but are at non-premium positions? And that is Sonny Styles really a Hall of Fame off-ball linebacker? Is Jeremiyah Love really a Hall of Fame starting tailback in the NFL? Is he a difference maker at that position long-term? You could maybe say the same thing about Caleb Downs. There are a few other positions, but those 3 in particular stand out. And if they are clearly the best player at their position and graded maybe as the 3 best players in the draft class, do you consider them at 4? Do you consider them, despite the fact that they are not premium positions that you normally would never recommend taking with that pick in the draft?
I think you consider them. But, I mean, I'm looking at some recent history, too. I mean, Bijan Robinson has not been a franchise maker drafted, in this kind of range. And then we saw the Raiders, with Genty do the same kind of thing. And look, it's only 1 year, and he could be a fantastic back. But, and the Raiders have gone this route a couple years running now. They took the tight end who was irresistible, and everybody says you have to take that tight end. I'm forgetting name here. Help me out.
What, last year? 2 years ago? Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers. So you take Brock Bowers and you take Ashton Genty and you say, these guys are otherworldly offensive talents. Well, obviously other things have to go right, but the team with the otherworldly offensive talents is drafted number 1 this year. So
when you put it that way,
I mean, there's something to be said.
But Fernando Mendoza will be in a much better situation because of Genty and Bowers. Like
he will, but that team's got a lot of problems that haven't been solved by making those picks. So I'm just saying there's another side to that.
So the one that I find interesting is Styles, and I agree with Ryan. I think Bijan Robinson's like an elite player. I don't know if Ashton Genty is. Styles not at 4 because you just can't take an off-ball linebacker at 4. But if you were to trade back to 10 or 12 and he's still on the board and like Bailey's gone and Bain's gone, and you don't want to decide on the receivers and you're not sure about Reese, and you have like right now the number 1 player on James Foster's board is Sonny Styles. He's the best prospect in the draft, according to him. And if you believe that, and he's graded higher than everybody else, and he fills a need, and he makes your defense immediately better, I can see it. I don't like it. I'm not saying that's what I want to do, but I can see the logic behind it. And then and coming out of this, hypothetically though, if that's the case, for Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, and Jeremiyah Love, we'll use those 3 as like clearly the best player at their position. You got to come out of this week having talked to them and being like, we have to have that guy in our locker room. Like he has to be so good for you to be considering doing that. But you might learn that this week. He loves ball. He's a champion. We got to have that guy.
I just I have trouble with some of those positions. An off-ball linebacker would be probably top of my list. Now, listen, I've covered a team for 29 years that hasn't valued off-ball linebacker. That's had like 3 good ones in their history: Bullock and Thornton and damn, I just forgot.
The best. The best 2 that they've ever had. The best 2 they've had since I started covering them were both drafted in the 5th round, which is Jayon Brown and David Long, basically undersized, short,
and they've played some good football. Without those guys, they went to Super Bowl with Baron Wortham as their inside linebacker, and a year before Keith Bullock arrived. So they've been cheap with it for a long time, and I don't think their lack of success has come because they haven't had good off-ball linebackers. I think regime after regime after regime has viewed it as a position where they could be all right. Randall Godfrey. So
there you go.
And interior guys in particular, David Thornton and Randall Godfrey.
And when it comes to corner, I am not. I mean, I would probably agree that it is their number 1 priority. It doesn't feel like anyone's on the board at 4 for them. Jamal McCoy, Mansour Delane, and Avion Terrell. You do need to get to know those guys and have a really good feeling for how good those guys are going to be. There's a ton of depth at that position. There could be upwards of 20 corners taken in the top 100. So there's a lot of opportunity to stockpile some talent there. You could go get some B-level guys in free agency, get a couple of picks later in the draft, and you could kind of try to go at it from a quantity standpoint. It's not that I don't think that is clearly a part of their focus this week. It is. I just don't think it's a part of the focus at 4. And so, again, not ignoring that at all. I just don't think it's as big of or as difficult to question. If you wanted to ask it, it's similar to Tyson. Jamal McCoy might be the best corner in this entire draft, but he hasn't played football in over a calendar year. You need to know what he is medically before you can really evaluate him. And he probably feels like he's more of a pick in the teens. And if that's the case, you're not really considering him. So you need to do your work on him, but it just doesn't seem like as pressing a question as truly getting to know Rueben Bain and David Bailey deep in their souls, what they are. And you got to figure out the difference between those 2 guys, because that is the decision that they will have to make that could dictate, the trajectory of the franchise. So that's sort of where I was at on that in terms of the positions. It's not less important. It's just, it doesn't feel as pressing. You need the corners to be fast. That's what you need them to be. You need them all to run well and do good 3-cone and good hip turn and good 40 speed, because there are some minimum requirements for that position athletically, for sure, that you need to see this week at the combine.
For sure. Let's get this thing started.
Yeah, man.
So we can get it over with.
That's right. Sucks that the top 3 players all play non-premium positions. That's about right, Ryan. That's about right.
It's
Paul
a
Kuharsky,
weird shaped draft. It's
It
not
is.
a draft to be so high.
PaulKuharsky.com is the website. Go support good local business. Sinkers Beverages is a liquor store that you should shop at. Sign up for the In Crowd. You can get that booze delivered right to your house from Uber Eats. So search on Uber Eats Sinkers Beverages. They'll come right to you. And make sure you check out all the other great content from Paul as well on the website. Look at that. Look, you got a thumbs up there. This is there you go.
Oh, God.
There you go. Check out Paul's work. Of course, follow him on Twitter. You can get to the website, Pay for Good Journalism as well. We're going to have stuff for you each, hopefully every day. Nick Suss is going to be on. James Foster is going to be on. We're going to do the hot read as well. We got a football show for you throughout the course of the week, probably in the afternoon. So make sure you keep the notifications turned on. We'll throw them up on the podcast feed as well. And if you can find us on Twitter while you're watching, that's great. But I would just go to YouTube. It's way easier.
Are we 4-boxing it or 3-boxing it?
We'll figure it out. Not a 4-banger. It's not going to be a 4-banger. It might be a tripod though. We'll see. For Paul, I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We will talk to you next time.